Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Roots. My name is Alexander. Hey, Mom, how you doing?
Hi, good. How are you? And my name is Lea Tran.
Great. So, a recap for those that are returning or visiting for the first time. Roots is a series of conversations between my mom, myself, and our family to understand our history, to understand our present, with the intent to link the two so that it connect us in a way that's stronger than ever before. So, uh, we are right in the middle of the journey, the big journey. So, for those that have been listening for the past couple of episodes, we've been talking about my mom's experience on that refugee boat. And it has uncovered a lot of feelings, a lot of different sentiments that I find really, really interesting. What have you been thinking about the conversation so far, Mom?
It's great. I love the connection and I love the way that your curiosity and things that I did not reveal a lot in the book. So, this conversation is actually based on the memoir that I wrote that was published back in September last year. And it's called I Did Not Miss the Boat. So if you are interested in knowing a little more about the story, you can buy the boat. You can buy the boat. You can buy the book on Amazon with the ebook version or a paperback. But you can buy also on my website, leetran.com, if you want an autograph copy.
Yeah. And I think jumping into this and especially covering the boat trip aspect of the journey, I find myself getting really surprised by a lot of the answers. And I think the biggest thing that I've realized so far is that you don't, in the moment, have the luxury to think about the things that I think you would be thinking about.
Yeah,
um,
it's true. Because a
and
lot
it
of time
really,
you were asking me, have I, or anybody thinking about returning or about, blaming that we don't want to be out here anymore.
mhm,
But that was not the question that we had
right.
at the time. I
Because
mean, there's a lot of regrets.
mhm,
There's a lot of regrets. That's people,
yeah.
no doubt about it. People was like, oh, had I known this difficult, I would have just died at home. At least I have
Hmm.
a proper burial. Now,
Hmm.
if I die out in the ocean, nobody knows, and
Yeah.
shock just gonna take, just gonna consume me, and
Yeah.
so there's a lot of fear there, and no doubt about it. There's a lot of people who would say, is there a way to go back? I mean, by
Yeah.
that time you're already caught in the middle. You can't go back or you can't go forward because it's just too far either way.
Hmm.
You don't want to return and then get another pirate assault. And what you gonna get when you get to Vietnam? You're gonna be in jail. There's no glorious there.
Yeah.
You know
And
that
the
the
big
future.
thing is like I think like above all of that, above of all of like the thoughts and the regrets and the sentiment and like at the very top, which I really should I don't know to think about this until I hear it from you, but like at the very top, it's just survival. It's just
Mm-hmm.
how do we move forward? How do we go
Right.
forward? And I feel like that is something that I definitely want to dig into later because it drives a lot of your decision making, your thought process, the way
Right.
that you handle your problems, and it's very different from how I do it. And I think, I
Mm.
mean, this is for a later topic, but I'm very interested in bringing in other members of our family to have that
Okay.
open discussion because I think that's going to be really interesting. Um,
Yeah, it's
but
all about survival mode. It's
mhm,
survival. You think about how you get out of that trap.
yeah,
Like if you put it in the a trap, you're in the hole. All you can think is, how am I going to get out of this hole? Instead of
mhm,
saying, oh, I wish I didn't get into the hole. I wish, I have this and that. But at the moment, that's all you have on your plate is how are you going to get out of this?
right,
And that's what we faced, and that's what we dealt with.
yeah. And I think before so that we want to definitely table for later. First and foremost, though, I want to have us jump back into the conversation and the journey of you in the boat. So
Okay.
we just talked through you battling pirates, escaping, surviving for days upon days without food, without water. And so I think I want to look at the next part of the trip, which is Malaysia.
Yeah,
And I think that, the story in and of itself is out there. It's in the book, but I want to go into emotionally what you were feeling, or if you felt anything at all
sure,
when
sure.
you got turned away.
So that's a huge moment of hope when you see land, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that people or no people, but you see land. You see the
Hmm.
possibility of getting out of the water. And it doesn't matter how dangerous is the land, is the jungle, or if anybody lived there, or if you have water or not, because that is the next phase. You don't think about that yet. You just right now just think about how you get off this giant body of water so you
Hmm.
can find anything. And I'm sure there's inland, you can find roots, you can find trees, you can find bark that you can eat, right? A lot better than the vomiting stuff on the boat and
Yeah.
then it's,
Yeah.
all this horrible stuff. So
Mm.
when we saw land, oh God, I was not the only one who's happy, but everybody was kind of almost like want to jump up and down, but you can't jump. When everybody see land, people are facing land and they all stand in one side. And people stand up, the boat will tilt
Oh
to
yeah.
that side, will lean to that side. So there's a lot of screaming, sit down, you're tilting the boat,
Hmm.
you might get capsized.
Yeah.
But the excitement was obvious. And I want to say that, a lot of time we don't believe in God until the very moment that we needed God. And on that boat journey before we saw land, and right every single time after the pirate assault, we all sit and pray. And
Mm.
religious or not, people cluster. That in that scene in Titanic,
Sure.
that the priest was standing there and saying Hail Mary and doing praying, and then a cluster of people just stay there and do the prayer. That's exactly what we did in our boat. There's a
Mm.
cluster of Christian and there's a cluster of Buddhist people, and we are chanting, and everybody was like really begging God to save us at the time.
Yeah.
And when we saw land, it was like, we're saved, God saved us. And we're so happy. But before we even get closer to land, we saw a coastal guard, the Malaysian guard.
Right.
And I have to say, I didn't really see them, but from a lot of hearsaying, because, the boat was dense. And I have to say that my dad has even though he was not the boat owner, which are the
Mm.
people who put money together to build the boat and to fund all this capital. But my dad had a lot of saying because he's knowledgeable, even though he was illiterate, he
Yeah.
couldn't read. He's not, but he's very smart, and he's got a lot of respect from the boat owners and a lot of
Right.
people.
I thought he was part, kind of like he was like the quote unquote project lead for.
Yes, he's the organizer. He's part of his job is to, put everything together and project
Uh-huh.
lead, but he's not funding the boat. There's
Oh,
people
okay.
who has money to put out there to hire people to do things for them, things that they don't know much about. They don't know much about
Uh-huh.
the boat. They don't know much. So they relied on my dad to
Uh-huh.
be part of the leaders. There's always a bunch of people who discussing things. My dad's not the only person who has a decision, but he has a very heavy weight on whatever he say, whatever he thinks. So my dad was take part in every negotiation. My dad was in the forefront of everything that need to decide for that 500 souls on that boat.
Wow. Yeah.
So he felt a lot of pressure.
Right.
And he told my mom and he told me when we land later on that there was a hole in the boat, that he was so scared, but he didn't tell anybody because he didn't want to get anybody to be panicked. So
Hmm.
he was trying to patch that boat while we're floating out in the ocean, and it was a slow leak, but nevertheless, it's a leak, right? I mean, when you're in
Right.
the ocean, a small leak can very fast turn into a big hole and a big leak.
Yeah.
So that's something that he managed, and he felt an enormous amount of pressure that he has to do the right things for that 500 people to survive.
Hmm.
So when before we saw land, we were so happy, and then not too long after, there's a coastal guard boat from
Yeah.
Malaysia approached us, and there's a lot of negotiation, talking back and forth, and we were docked for hours, and I think that the coastal guard.
Oh, that's got to be the worst feeling, isn't
Oh
it?
God!
Like,
Every time is the worst, because waiting is the worst thing. I mean, if you die right away, you don't have any feeling to it. But you have to sit,
right.
like even people execute.
Were
The
they
last.
even letting you off the boat just to like stretch your legs or anything?
No, we wouldn't be off the boats. But when we dock, there's people who jump off to the water and swim. Some of the people that younger and they have strength, they want
Uh,
to soak themselves. They want to get cool, and they want to just go down to the water, because you just like fry, on the boat.
yeah.
And
Well,
so I didn't
how are
jump.
you? How are you at that
I
point?
I I was not I was not strong enough to jump down to the water to swim.
Uh,
I was really weak, and I sat there, and I'm waiting, and it was like there's hope,
it's got to
and
be the
there's
worst feeling
waiting.
in the world. That's got to be awful.
That's waiting. And I
Because
know that.
you're just on the boat. The dock is like right next to you, and you can't get off, and you can't like.
Yeah, but it's not like really close. I mean, you can see it miles away.
Oh, okay.
It's not something that you can see land. You can see the shadow of the mountain,
Okay.
but you're not that close. And
Gotcha.
then we wait, and we were. I think the coastal guard, that they have to, I don't know, telegraph or communicate with their commander on land, to see if they accept more refugee or not.
Hmm.
It's a big boat with a lot of people, and they are already at that time had a lot of influx. I mean, there's almost like every week there's, I don't know, maybe a dozen of boats that appear every week. So they are they are so crowded. So after hours and hours of negotiation, and they told us that they can't accept us,
Yeah.
and it's almost like, you almost feel like, oh my God, shoot me now.
Yeah.
And I don't know what, but we just playing deaf, because my dad said, we're not going to move. We're not going to do anything. If we stay long enough, maybe they have pity on us. And then he
Oh,
kept pushing, like, do they want money? Do they want, they want bribery? What does it take for them to take us? That's all
yeah.
that question, because we saw land. We saw land. We're so
Mhm.
close,
It's just like get off already. Just like come
right,
on. Mm.
right. And then hours later, and there's even talk about destroying the boat, because the only way that they will have to save us because of humanity is our boat sink, and we are on the ocean, and they have no choice but to take us to their boat.
Oh,
But we were afraid. We were afraid that people might die. And by
right,
the time they rescue us, many people will die before they even rescue us,
right. Hmm.
because we were so weak at the time,
Yeah,
you know, and a lot of children, a lot of older people. So you got to take into the consideration,
yeah.
like
Drowning can
not,
happen really fast.
not all the boat people are young men, or people who have strength. Like my
Right.
dad was in his 40s, so he's still strong. But
Uh-huh.
not everybody. That was only maybe a quarter of the populations are capable um, men that have strength, or young people. But a
Mm.
lot of them, are weak, women's and children's and older people. So they didn't do it. They didn't destroy the boats. And after hours and hours, and then we saw something that we thought was really hopeful, because we start seeing they hooking up us into a rope, like a big thick rope,
Yeah.
and into our boat. And we were like, oh my God, this is
It's
it.
gonna happen.
They save us. They're gonna pull us into land. And oh my God, all this there's a phrase in Vietnamese called "nằm giả," meaning like you just lay there until things happen, right? So that's what we just did. We just lay there. We don't do anything, and hoping that they will take us in. But
Mm.
after they hook us up, and and their boat moving, and our boat just start moving. Was like, oh, all right. But then everybody starts to get disappointed after 10 minutes. Like, they're not moving toward land. They're
Hmm.
moving out to the ocean.
Yeah.
That's the wrong direction.
So
That's the direction that we came from. We do not
yeah.
want to go out to the ocean.
Hmm.
And the land is this way, but the rope is pulling out. And it was really scary because they don't even pull it out and considering that how we feel, because they just
Yeah.
want to hurry up and get rid of us in a sense.
Yeah.
So they pull it really fast. I mean, that big giant um, ship, and they pull us our little dinky boat in there, and they go so fast that we were like a jet boat. It's like a jet
Hmm.
ski jet that were just leaping on water.
At this
And
point, were you still like conscious enough to like understand what was going on, or were you just kind of like what again, like what were you
I was
feeling?
scared, just like everybody else. People were
Yeah.
screaming, scaring, and it was like, "Oh my God, they're pulling us out to the ocean!" So all it takes is one person scream out, and then the whole boat, everybody
Uh,
was like, "Oh my God, what's going on? Now we're gonna die!" And was
it's
hugging each
almost
other. I was like,
out of a movie. Jeez.
"Oh yeah," and we were just sitting tight. We hold on to the whatever we can tight because there's no seats or anything. Like I said, we all sit on the floor, and when you charging towards so fast, and your boat is leaping on top of the water, and it's flying at that point, and
Hmm.
it's so scary. And there's a lot of screaming and yelling, and the man's like, "What are we gonna do?" So there's a lot of back and forth screaming, communicating, because it was loud. It was out in the ocean, and somehow they say we're gonna have to cut the rope. We're gonna have to cut the rope because that's
Yeah.
only because, or else we're gonna be capsized.
Yeah.
They pull so fast, and they did not really care about how much screaming or how much crying we were back here, because
Hmm.
it's a distance, and all they know is they're gonna pull you back out of their territory because they don't want to be inside of Malaysia border water, that they want you to be out in the international ocean, so they are
Yeah.
not responsible for that.
Hmm.
So I didn't know what happened. It was really a lot of commotion, and I was really scared. And I have been sitting next to my mom ever since that first night I got out of the bottom of the boat where they separate the younger people
Yeah.
to be down the bottom. So
Hmm.
I was up there. I was clinging on to my mom, and after the pirates separate us, I came back. I was like, I am not living. I'm not leaving my mom
Hmm.
anywhere. I am going to cling on to her. It doesn't matter what. I am going to die with my family. I'm not going to take any chances to be pulled and to be out in the different boats or different places that not with my parents. So I sat next to my mom with my sisters, my brother, and we were so scared. And somehow things just like stopped. Somebody did manage. I don't know how. I don't know exactly what happened, but the rope was cut, and we got
Okay.
loose. We got loose. Either they cut us or we cut ourselves. I don't know, but we no longer see the land. We no
Yeah.
longer see Malaysia. So I don't know exactly what happened, but we were so scared for, I would say, like half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour. I mean, at that
Hmm.
time, everything seems like forever. I didn't know how long, but out of a sudden, things just start like we felt a drop, and we're no longer leaping on the water. So the rope got cut, and
Right.
um, and then at that time we realized our engine's just broken.
Oh no.
The engine is no longer working. Now we still have a little bit of fuel left,
Hmm.
but the engine just couldn't take it anymore.
Like that. That's such a cinematic scenario. It's just like, how could it get any worse? And then boom, like it just drops on you.
Yeah,
But now you're having to be facing the reality of what is going on, and the fact that like your chance is gone. Like I don't know that.
You gone through high, right? You see land and you talk to people like actual people, not pirates anymore, and the
Mm,
hope was high. And then hours later, everything just go right back into the bottom of the valley again, and you
mm,
felt like, okay, I think this is it. We're gonna all die. Nobody gonna knows. Nobody gonna rescue us. We don't see any big boats, any merchant boats out there, and
because the thing is, like, people experience emotional highs and lows all the time. I I'm curious to know if, because this is on such a drastic end of the spectrum, right? It's like
yeah,
the absolute high, you are going to live versus the absolute low, you are going to die.
yeah.
You know, and I'm like, has that changed the way you've viewed other highs and lows in your life? Has that changed?
Yeah, I funny that you asked because everything is like live and dead to me. Like if I want to do something, I got to do it. Got to like I feel like I
Mm,
don't have a chance tomorrow if I don't do it today. So it's good and bad because I think the PTSD is lingering in the back. Like if I don't do it now, I mean there's moment of urgency.
yeah,
You don't know what you're gonna leave for the next moment.
yeah. Wow.
And
It's so interesting because I thought I like it shows how differently the perspective is based on
yeah,
like my upbringing.
yeah,
Whereas my thought process was, well, if I were put in that situation, I would think less of the highs and lows in my daily life because, well, it's not life or death. I don't have to be as concerned about it. But from your perspective, it's, well, I need to tackle it because I don't know when I'm going to get the chance to tackle it again. I think that's so cool.
yeah.
I think that's
I don't
really,
know.
really
It
interesting.
created a lot of anxiety in me. I know that a lot of time that I think I'm ADD. I think that because I'm very hyperactive, and I think that because all those trauma experience sort of like tell me that you might not have a tomorrow, and that had been validated over and over and over, not just this trip, but
Mm,
later on you will find out why I think more like that because I have seen that people, die, disappear, things happen, and
sure.
they didn't have another chance to live the way that they want or do the things that they want.
Hmm.
So for me, I'm not saying that everybody is gonna come out like me, but that's my personal experience
Right.
about how I handle things.
I
And
mean, yeah, it's definitely as much of a factor as it is that we're very different people, but it's also like a very much a contribution to. I still think it's a contribution to just kind of like what you experience versus what I've experienced, and the fact that like you've experienced such a more dynamic spectrum of that is telling to the way you perceive these things. And I have to imagine that you're absolutely not alone in that thought process.
yeah, I think there's either you come out. It can be either way. You can come out and say, it's not up to me. Whatever
Mhm,
happened, God, have a way to. If it happened, it happened. If it doesn't, that's fine. But
mhm.
there's another spectrum. You come out, it's like I absolutely have to do it because uh, I can be taking control that I can right now. What if I can't control that the next day? Then I missed the chance of doing it today.
Yeah. Did you did you have, and to the extent that you're comfortable, tell me, did you have an honest conversation with yourself about death, about thinking about it, about what would happen if you got out of it?
At that time, I would say no. I didn't really have a conversation with myself.
Mm,
I asked my mom, "We're gonna die." It's like it's all about. I was 16. I'm just not that wise.
yeah.
Um, all I worry is worry and hope. That's the only thing. You're scared because of the things that you can't control, and you're
Hmm.
hopeful because you're young. You're always hopeful. And
Yeah.
I know that I was hopeful, and when I mean you you're happy at every step that you save. Like, we saw the land and we were hopeful and we were happy, and then we slum because we got dragged out of the ocean, and then we got cut off, and we were happy that we're off from that Then we slum again. Now the engine's broke and the hole in the boat. I didn't know about it, but my dad know about that, right? He didn't tell me until after we get on land.
Yeah.
So we only take one little step at a time. So you are hopeful, and you worry, you're hopeful for the next step. And
Mhm.
at that time, I want to say that not not just me, not just my mom, my dad, but I think every single one on that boat pretty much give up the idea of we're gonna live,
Mhm.
because we were out. We have no compass because the compass was thrown away and destroyed by the pirates. So we had no direction where to
Oh,
go,
wow.
and we
Yeah.
didn't know where we are or we were. And the fuel is just only, we only have a little bit of a gasoline, but it doesn't matter because the engine was not working. It's go
Right.
and then it
Yeah.
died, and it died. People tried to rescue, and there's some mechanic in the boat. They tried to fix it, but I don't know what, people are panicked, people are not in the right mindset, or what, you know, things didn't happen. The boat's completely quiet, and
Yeah.
all you hear is the wave. All you smell is the oceans. All you
Yeah.
see is the wave, endless body of water. It's in, you're like a little speck in the giant body of water that you think that you're so insignificant at this point. Anything happen to you, nobody in the world know or care, or it doesn't even matter. And it was completely quiet, and all you hear is crying,
Mm.
prayers.
Mm.
People are moaning, and some of the Asian people are really dramatic when they in the stage of sorrow, they
Yeah.
moan. Oh my God, we're gonna die. It's like, why did we? Especially older lady, they're
Uh,
really good, and it makes you feel 100 times worse because it's almost like you're getting ready to die. And I just
yeah.
want to, like, if I'm gonna die, please let it happen quickly.
Uh, and this is the complete opposite of that. This is the slowest,
This is
like,
slow, and you don't know what happened. And
ah,
the night is most horrifying thing, because
mm,
the night was quiet. And thankfully that time it was not typhoon season, so
yeah.
there's still some wave, there's still some ocean, because you're out in the ocean, there's going to be wave, right? It doesn't matter
Mm,
because your boat is so little, so small. It's not like
right.
a cruise ship. And even the cruise ship, sometimes if you go into the cruise ship, you can feel the wave if there's a bigger wave out in the ocean. So
Right.
we felt every time we go up and down, and the engines is quiet, so all we hear is the sound of the winds, the sound of crying, the sound of moaning, the sound of exhausting, quiet, and people just like almost give up. And they was
That's
like,
just despair, like
yeah.
times a million, just
And at that
exponential.
time, you just have to surrender. And I think we
Oh, wow.
surrender. You surrender because there's nothing on your human level of capacity that you can do it anymore. You
Mhm.
surrender to whatever God say that you live or you die. And when the sun is setting and the darkness just pull in, and you just drift aimlessly, don't know where you're drifting.
Did that did
You don't
that
even know you're gonna wake up tomorrow
that's
and
so
alive.
brutal. That is so brutal.
And
I wow.
and again, that scene of the Life of Pi,
Uh-huh. In that
when I
movie,
watched
yeah.
that movie, when he was like, in that little dinky boat by himself with that
Uh-huh.
light, with that tiger,
Yeah.
and I went back to that scene of me and my boat. And
Uh-huh.
another scene in the Titanic, when everybody, when the lights go out on the boat and the boat break into two and people are
Mhm.
dropping into the ocean,
Yeah.
and you see nothing but the stars in the ocean. That again brought me back to where I was.
Right. Like that is an interesting thing. Some of our family, like I we for the listeners' context, I have an aunt named Lori, where she was talking about like some of the things that she's experiences. And it's like sometimes I think like experiences turn me off to particular things or stimuli, but like she was telling us about like the fact that she can't actually look at the ocean for, or else it'll take her back. Like she can't just look at an ocean.
Yeah.
Like she can't be on a boat. I'm sorry, she can't be on a boat and look at the ocean because like that just brings back so much for
It's
her.
so scary. I have to say, even just recently, I think a couple years ago, and I've been to the cruise with you and Daddy
Yeah.
in the past, right?
Mhm.
But when I'm trying to not focusing on the sea, I'm focused on the family, I'm good. And recently, I think 4 years ago, I went to a chamber cruise function, and if I stay outside the cruise in the balcony and look out in the ocean, I mean, in no time it can take me back to that
Yeah,
time frame.
I can
And I try
imagine.
to stay away from it um, if I'm preoccupying myself and not think about it. But it's so easy to bring you back.
Mm.
That's a
Can you
phrase.
tell me a little bit more about what that felt like? Just like that level of surrender, that just like acceptance of what was happening. Like
Well,
is
you just give up. You just give in. You can't fight anymore. I was so exhausted. I had no more tear to cry. I mean, you cry and you cry for your death. You cry for your family's death. You cry for the whole entire boat's gonna be gone, vanish.
mm,
You just hope that people are not suffering. I just hope that I'm not gonna. That's why I'm still scared of water. I'm never really good at swimming, but sometimes just feel like sharks probably luring around. And when you're in the most scary place, it's so easy to think about all the worst stuff. It's just because you don't see the hope. So all you think is, all this bad stuff. I mean, it's like, am I gonna, you know, it's just all the random thought, and sometimes I think people just trying to sleep and not
mm,
think about it. I know I was closing my eyes and I didn't want to think about it, and the only
mm.
thing that I thought is, will I wake up tomorrow dry?
My gosh, yeah.
Will I wake up tomorrow still on the boat? Will I wake up tomorrow? My mom's still here, or am I floating? Or a shark's already ate half of me, Just like a lot of
Yeah.
horrible thoughts. And at that time, I never watched the Titanic before. I didn't watch any of that.
Sure.
So that was my true witnessing of this giant sky with a lot of beautiful stars. And every night I saw that. And that register, that's the most beautiful things. But that's also the most scary thing because,
Sure.
you're in the middle of the ocean looking up the beautiful sky and thinking, are you going to be alive the next breath?
That's phew,
So
wow.
yeah, we surrender, and like I said, that was the longest night, and it's restless. You can't sleep, but you're exhausted. What you gonna do? I mean, everything that is out of your control.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going, so the boat just drifting.
Mm,
And I say that all those prayers, all those begging, all those people who are praying must touch God's ears, because when we woke up, we saw a floating device that's not too far from us.
hmm.
Somehow we drift, and this is like a little things out in the middle of the ocean, and that was the oil rig. And I don't even
Yeah.
remember what country or what, but there's oil rigs out there, and it was kind of floating. It's like, looks weird, and people thought they're hallucinating because
Hmm.
something floating, and it's
Yeah.
giant, it's big. It's
Hmm.
got all this industrial thing, all the pipes and all the thing going, and they saw us.
Yep.
So they got a boat, they got people come out to check on us, but they told us that they could not rescue us because I don't know, because a certain agreement, I didn't understand why, but
Yep.
they are probably from a certain country. They're in a company, they're not a country, so they're not allowed to rescue us, to take
Hmm.
us in. But they were they were there to help us. They fixed the engine, they got some parts or something, they swap the engine or whatever they do, they fix the engine,
Hmm.
so the engine was working, and they
Yep.
give us gas, and then I remember those they passing down big hoses of water.
Mm.
It's like a snake. It's like
Like a fire truck hose,
yeah.
almost.
I mean, it's like they have half a dozen of hoses just passed down to our boats, and we were
Uh-huh.
just looking for container and clean container, and so.
Yeah.
And I remember that when the hose passed by, I didn't even wait until it go into the container. I just like put it in my mouth and I just like drown myself with
Uh-huh.
water. I was so thirsty that I thought I'm gonna be like so dehydrated if I didn't drink. So I drank until I'm completely bloated.
Uh-huh.
And then they
Gee.
have some crackers that pass
That must
around.
have that must have been a surreal feeling. That
Oh
must have been
God.
the most, yeah.
That is what you feel like. I mean, it just, the irony is you are out in a body of water
Mhm.
and you can't drink any of it. It's not like in the desert, right? You're dry, you don't have water, but you are out in the body of water. Everywhere
Yep.
you're surrounded by water, but
Yeah.
you can't drink any of that.
It's cruel.
And I want to say that what it saved us is we got a little misty from the sky. You know, we have a little drizzling
Mhm.
from the day before, and that's what bought us a little more time because it wasn't rain big, but it's just drizzling, and that was just enough for us to wet our tongues and
Mhm.
our lips and our face, and every little bit help. So at that point, we were back up to the high again. There's the hope again, you know.
Oh wow.
So this time is for real, even though that we are not accepted into any country, but there's humanity. People give us water, so at least we know that we can survive for a couple more days.
Mhm.
They can't rescue us, so they gave us a compass, and they point us to the direction that where we can get help. And they say that Malaysia is not taking you, but you should go to Indonesia because Indonesia um, start taking no Indonesia has been taking refugee, but they're
Mhm.
not at the point that they're overcrowded, so they still taking refugees. So they told the organizer, the captains, and the
Yep.
people that go to that direction. They gave us a compass,
Mhm.
so they were prepping us where to go, exactly what island. So that's what
Yep.
it
Perfect.
took us another like 12 hours to get to Indonesia.
Mhm. But you did
But
it.
yeah, we did it. We
Yeah.
did
And
it.
then take me through I think this is a good stopping point, but take me through kind of like the first feelings and emotions and reactions of seeing the land, approaching it, getting off, touching ground again. Like, can
We're
you talk
saved.
about that?
The feeling is we're not dead.
Uh
We're
huh.
alive. We're going to be saved.
Yeah.
We don't care what it is going to be. We just want to be on land. And
Hmm.
at that point, the joy of not being in the water anymore after a week of seasick, of,
Hmm.
in the water, and you feel like so hopeless, right? You're out in the water, and now you actually be able to step on land. And whatever happens, it's later. Right
Hmm.
now, the priority is to get on land and to be out of the danger of water. Now,
Right.
you can go on land and get chased by tiger, and you might want to go back to the boat again, but who knows? Don't Nobody cares at that point. They just
Sure.
want to know that if they can get on land, and then we'll deal with anything come out later.
Hmm.
So what I learned is when you are in the situation, just take one step at a time
Yep.
to move you to the next step. It's
Yep.
almost like when you're driving in the foggy night, right? You can't
Hmm.
see anything farther than 100 feet.
Yep.
Then when your headlight can only see you. So you just get to that point and then you go to the next 100 feet, to the next 100 feet. And that's
Hmm.
what we were doing. We get to the point that, we're not gonna die anymore. So
Hmm.
the next step is how we're gonna get out of the boat and be
Yeah.
in the dry place. And then whatever happens, we'll deal with it later.
Hmm. I feel like that's something that, um, from moving forward, carrying that onto your life is a particular strength that I've seen you display very well, especially when it comes to things like a very good example is running your own business. So, but before you started this venture, you were doing stuff with distinctive designs, which was your interior designing business. And I feel like the very interesting thing there was that, like, no matter what happened, no matter how good business was, like, you were just moving forward. You were just always doing something. And I feel like that's a particular level of work ethic that I find very hard to see, where it was just like, you know, I again, it's something that I can never understand because I just haven't been in that situation. But like, I don't think there was a time where I ever saw you avoiding work or avoiding having to do something that you needed to do, which I think is something that I definitely should have learned more from.
Well, you know what? I hope that you know, this will clear up because I think not just me, but because how I see my parent did it too, and
Mm,
they come from a place of trauma also.
mm,
I know that we've been through talking about my dad, but there's a lot of things I didn't understand about my dad, but that's all I see. I see him just moving one challenge at a time and just keep dealing with whatever he's. I mean, I'm sure there's overwhelming and there's also a lot of pressure and stress. And there's sometime I didn't understand back then, but now I understand that's why he took out of the family, and he was temperament because he didn't know how to let go of his anxiety, and that was kind of like his outlet. Now I know better because I'm, believe it or not, somewhat I'm sort of like raised in this society too, in this country,
yep,
that teaching me how to deal with my stress and how to reason things out and not taking out of the people that I love.
yep.
So I totally understand from my dad, but my dad and my mom too, she went through so many hardship when she was little, and she was forced into doing a lot of things that not able to swim, but she's canoeing all this dry good for my grandmother
Mm,
just to make a living, and she doesn't know how to swim, and up to this day she's still scared of water and does not know how to swim, but she's crossing the river and she's, you know, canoeing up and down the river and help my grandma to make a living.
mm,
So there's a lot of things that you can't put your limitation because you say that I can't do this, I can't do that. You just have to plow through because the circumstances that push you. And I think somewhat in my generation, I still feel like, you know, I have a luxury of saying that I want to do that, so I'm going to put all my energy to do that.
mm,
And then in the beginning, you know, I put all my energy even though I didn't like to do it. So that's the part that I learned from my parents, right?
mm.
Because I need to provide, I need to do this to help my family, so I have to do that. But
Right.
later on in life, I realized that I don't have to do it the things that I don't like to do. So I branch out. I quit my job just because I want to do things that I want to do. And to
Mm,
do that, I have to relearn everything. I have to learn about speaking, I have to learn about marketing, I have to learn about business. And when you put your determination in there and you take one step at a time, even if you're not success in the big way, you will success in some way. Because
mm.
I always say that, you know, as long as you're doing it, you will come out better than the day that you did yesterday or the day, you know, last week or last month.
Mm.
So
And
I
I think
appreciate.
even then, it's at a point where I'm not going to say that it's a lot easier for you to have done that, but it probably comes more naturally to you when you've seen the spectrum of what happens when you do something versus when you don't do something. And I feel like there was like a
And there's a
really,
level of panic, like I said, you know, it's a
yeah.
level of thing that I must do it, I got to do it because
Mhm.
I have come so far,
Yeah, but
and it's
that was
a
just that
life
was a
and
point of
death
strength. Yeah,
situation to me.
definitely a point of strength though, that I think
It could
is
be a strength, it could be something that over driving and maybe it's
mhm,
not good for your health. And I know that a lot of anxiety, a lot of things that I should take it easy because it's not good for my health. And sometime when you were young, I forced you to do the things that, like practicing piano, you know, because I see the talent and I see you're so good at it, and I didn't want you to waste it, and I didn't make it fun enough for you, and I still blame myself for that. But there's it's like there's a tiger mom in me that when I read the book from Amy Chua, she's talking about the battle hymn of the tiger mom, and I
Mhm.
felt like that's part of me. I'm not as regimented as she was. She's completely a real tiger mom. I think I have part in it. It's just because the background that that you can succeed if only you enforce it, and everything in life is through enforcement habit. It's not something that's going to come easy. You have to work at it. And
Mhm.
I think that part of it's like I learned from my parents, part of it I get it from my own experience,
Totally.
and I just have to balance it out to make life a little more pleasurable instead
Mhm.
of just not everything is life and death.
Sure. And I think what that really helps me understand is it provides the context for a lot of what I observed and I received and I witnessed growing up. And I think the biggest thing there is I feel like in a lot of situations I could resent that, but because of these conversations and because of what we are talking about and what I'm learning about, there's no way that I can resent it. There's
Thank
and
you.
and I think that that's that's so important because I mean like for me it's just like I gotta understand like where you're coming from, and I think
Yeah.
when I do that, it's a completely different
It's
angle.
the
It's a
same
completely
way.
different ball game.
I did have a lot of resentment toward my parents too when I told a certain time in my life, and I felt like my youth has been hijacked.
Totally.
So there's the resentment there. But until I wrote the book, until I get to understand who they were, and
Mhm.
understand that what they have to do for me, that resentment is gone.
Yeah.
That resentment turned into love, to
Yeah.
understanding.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's a healthy conversation. It's a healthy way to talk it out, reason it out. And there's
Mhm.
always two sides of the story, right? It's always two sides of the coin. You can't just say, you hate or like a certain person just because, but until you understand that person, you will see the reason why it shaped that person and why it shaped
Mhm.
you. So this conversation is healthy, and I hope other people will find a way to clear out whatever misunderstanding between them and their parents.
Totally. And I think
There's
that's
there's one more thing I want to say, that every
go for it.
generation, right,
Mhm.
always blame the one before. There's a song for it, right?
Uh-huh.
Every generation is always blame the generation before.
Mhm.
But until we understand what the generation before had to go through, blaming is not a way to go.
Nope.
Blaming is not going to solve anything. So
Mhm.
let's not
I
blame.
think yeah, and understanding at least, or at least listening, is the first step to that level of understanding, a level of gratitude, and it opens the door for
Yeah,
a lot of other interesting conversations to
absolutely.
happen.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a great way to end today's show. So
Oh, yeah.
thanks for opening up, Mom. Thanks for this wonderful conversation. Thanks everyone for listening in. Next episode we are going to cover the landing points. So now Mom is
Yeah.
safe. Mom is safe, and now I feel like that's like the journey's just getting started. It's just beginning. And so now there's so many new things that you have to deal with that we can pick apart. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to pick that up.
I want to say thank you, Alexander. Every single time I talk to you, every episode, it just feel like, it really open the door. It's get bigger and bigger between me and you. And we actually, um, I don't know. I just feel so good that all this conversation surfaced up, and I had no idea that a lot of things that you didn't understand, because I just take for granted that you should understand, and I had no
Mhm.
idea that you were completely perplexed and not able to. So that's why people say that. Um, don't assume anything. So I'm not going to assume anything from now on.
Hmm.
But thank
Yes.
you so
Assume that I
much.
don't know anything. That's
Yeah,
very good.
that's true. That's true. And you didn't. You didn't.
Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we hope that our intimate conversation between mother and son will also strike a chord in your own family history that you wanna find out more about your history, your roots,
Hmm.
your
All
parents.
right. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Mom, for hopping on, and we will catch you in the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.